Welcome to this Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into an incredibly ambitious intellectual and spiritual framework. And just to set the stage, all of the source material we're unpacking today comes from one single author, Xu Feng, the founder of Life Chanyan. We're going to map out his deeply personal journey to figure out the ultimate essence of life. And honestly, whether you agree with his final conclusions or not, watching his thought process jump from the microscopic laws of quantum physics all the way up to cosmic spirituality offers a truly unique look at how we search for meaning.
Now, Xu Feng's journey kicks off right where a lot of great philosophical quests do, with a massive existential crisis. Feeling totally battered by the daily grind, he found himself asking the big ones. Why am I actually alive? What is the point of all this? He hit this dramatic realization, basically deciding that living without knowing these things is literally no better than dying. And sure, the traditional concepts of heaven and hell offered some kind of framework, but he felt it was absolutely crucial to figure out the true meaning of life before trying to figure out how to face death. But here's the kicker. When he dug into traditional religious and spiritual texts, we're talking Buddhist scriptures, the Bible, the Quran, the Tao Te Ching, he just came up empty. The answers simply weren't there for him.
Okay, let's dive into this. Coming up empty with religion, Xu Feng decided he just had to figure this out himself. So he pivoted to science. He started a search with what sounds like a really simple question, but it's actually incredibly profound. Why is the human body externally symmetrical? Think about it. What invisible force out there is actually mandating that our left side mirrors our right? He hypothesized that the secret to life, the absolute fundamental blueprint, had to be hiding in the physical forces shaping that symmetry, right at the very origin of life's structure. So to track down this foundational life factor, Xu Feng started zooming in, further and further into sub-microscopic matter. He looked way past molecules, past atoms, and past protons, neutrons, and electrons. He knew those structures alone couldn't possibly explain the complex symmetry of a living, breathing body. This pushed him right into the wild realm of elementary particles and subparticle space. He specifically zeroed in on quarks, or stratons. These are essentially the theoretical, absolute foundational building blocks of particles. Now, even though the exact structure of a quark is still a giant scientific mystery, Xu Feng was convinced they had to exist, and he really wondered if they held the ultimate secret to life. Taking this quantum deep dive, Xu Feng started looking at the bizarre wave-particle duality of elementary particles, putting a massive focus on particle spin. And just a heads up, in the quantum world, spin doesn't work like a spinning top. It's so much weirder. Some particles look exactly the same from any direction. Some need a 360-degree turn, but get this, some actually require a full 720-degree rotation. That is 2 complete full-circle turns just to appear the exact same as when they started. Crazy, right? Xu Feng rigorously explored these behaviors, really hoping to isolate the exact physical mechanism that generates the structure of living beings. All this quantum physics led him straight to antiparticles, basically the idea that every particle has a mate out there that can annihilate it. Stephen Hawking actually theorized that because of this, there might literally be entire anti-worlds out there populated by anti-humans made entirely of antiparticles. Now, Xu Feng totally acknowledged that particle annihilation and quantum symmetry seemed to edge really close to explaining our physical symmetry, but he ultimately concluded it wasn't enough. This purely physical approach still completely missed the mark on the spirituality of life. It just doesn't explain the true essence of what makes us real people.
Pushing even further down the rabbit hole, he looked into superstring theory. If you're familiar with this, it's the idea that elementary particles aren't just tiny dots, but they're actually one-dimensional vibrating strings, kind of like the melodies you'd get from plucking a guitar string. And while that paints this beautiful, elegant picture of the universe as a giant cosmic symphony, Xu Feng realized that even these super-advanced multi-dimensional frameworks eventually hit a brick wall. They still fail to unify the 4 fundamental forces of nature: gravity, electromagnetism, the weak force, and the strong force. So science was still just giving him a fragmented, incomplete picture of reality.
But here is where we hit a massive turning point in his scientific review. Xu Feng finally found a glimmer of hope in the theory of cosmic holography. Why? Because it introduces a crucial third state into the universe. Beyond just mass and energy, cosmic holography brings in thought energy, or the cosmic phenomenon of actually thinking. For Xu Feng, this was an absolute game changer. It meant human understanding could finally break past the rigid, stubborn boundaries of pure, dead matter and actually include consciousness itself as a fundamental building block of the universe. Building on that momentum, Xu Feng evaluated the unified field theory.
And he gives a very objective, very neutral assessment here. He definitely credits the theory with some incredible insights. I mean, it attempts to solve the very first cause of celestial motion, it explains particle spin, and it even proposes this mind-bending concept that black holes aren't just dense pockets of mass or energy, but they're actually massive bodies of consciousness. He calls this great wisdom. Yet, for all its cosmic grandeur, the unified field theory still completely fails to answer his two biggest questions. How did life actually originate in the first place, and why do human beings have a sense of good and bad morals?
Let's see how this builds up to a total scientific roadblock. Xu Feng points to Gödel's incompleteness theorem. This basically states that within any given system, there are always going to be unprovable, contradictory propositions. You just cannot have both an immovable object and an unstoppable force existing in the same universe. It's a literal paradox. Xu Feng highlights Stephen Hawking's realization that this exact theorem applies to physics too, which means a true unified field theory is, essentially, impossible. Science, at least in its current form, had stopped. It was a complete dead-end form.
So what do you do when the world's greatest religious texts and the most advanced quantum physics on the planet both fail to give you answers? Well, for the founder of Life Shenyuan, throwing in the towel just wasn't an option. He decided to take the whole thing into his own hands through what he calls self-refinement. He took that holographic theory he'd been studying and applied it practically. He started practicing his thinking, intensely focusing his thought energy through meditation and actively dispatching his consciousness right out into the universe just to see what would happen.
And this intense meditation led to a huge, middle-of-the-night epiphany. Lying awake in bed, these profound realizations just flooded his mind, perfectly synthesizing the wisdom of massive, historical spiritual figures. He remembered Jesus saying that pure faith could literally move a tree into the sea. He thought of Lao Tzu describing the elusive, totally formless essence of the Tao. And he remembered Buddhist Sakyamuni stating, "Everything with form is unreal." Suddenly it clicked. The physical, material world, the exact thing he had spent all this time analyzing through particle physics, was actually just a secondary illusion.
This realization literally made him laugh out loud, just rolling around under his quilt in the middle of the night. He had finally discovered what he calls the great secret, holographic order. He realized the universe is absolutely not random chaos. It's governed by a deeply interconnected holographic order. In this framework, every single action is intimately linked. To use Xu Feng's own incredibly vivid example, if you scold someone yesterday and a bird poops on your head today, that is absolutely not random bad luck. When you truly grasp holographic order, you can see the inevitable, direct connection between those two seemingly unrelated events.
So the absolutely crucial point here is how we define life itself. Xu Feng was hugely inspired by a quote from Dr. Christopher Langton, who stated that the essence of life lies not in its substance, but in its form. And this right here perfectly bridges Xu Feng's entire journey. He realized he'd been looking in the wrong place this whole time. The true secret of life wasn't hiding in the physical substance of molecules or quarks or vibrating superstrings. The actual essence of life exists purely in its form, the invisible spiritual blueprint that actually organizes all that physical matter.
This massive realization became the absolute bedrock of Life Shenyuan's tenets of life, as authored by Xu Feng. Let's walk through these core conclusions together. Number 1, life is defined as a non-material structure possessing spirituality. Second, life operates on the principle that 1 + 1 = 1, meaning the physical matter and that invisible spiritual blueprint combine to create one singular, unified whole of life. Third, and this is a big departure from many traditional beliefs, reincarnation, or transmigration, happens instantaneously. There's no waiting room or process in between. And finally, there is no doomsday. Death is absolutely not the end of the line. It's literally just a transition within that larger holographic order.
To wrap up our explainer today, I want to leave you with this incredibly fascinating metaphor straight from Xu Feng's writings. He says that the process of life is kind of like writing a fax, and that life itself can be faxed forward into its next transmigration. The fundamental nature of this whole cycle is simply, what goes around comes around, or as you sow, so shall you reap. So if your current life is a document being written in real time and instantly transmitted into the universe's holographic order, what message are you transmitting right now? It's a pretty profound thought to carry with you. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and as always, keep questioning the universe around you.